same-sex marriage. Now you're for it. You defended President Obama's immigration policies. Now you say they're too harsh. You supported his trade deal dozens of times. You even called it the gold standard. Now, suddenly last week, you're against it. Will you say anything to get elected?
Well, actually, I have been very consistent over the course of my entire life. I have always fought for the same values and principles.
But look, you've been a tenants leader for what, 15 years now? Okay, more than 15 years. And the people know your work, and they trust you. Do you really feel as though if they found out now that you had been a communist, that they'd somehow decide you aren't a good person now?
Okay, so I'm not saying that there aren't communists that are like nuts. There are. I mean, there's always going to be people in every movement and every group carry things a little too far. I thought they carried things a little too far when they started breaking windows of banks and stuff during the inauguration. But I don't think that they should have to spend their life in jail over it. I mean, and so I'm saying that just like back then, you have people reacting. Back then you had people reacting to people being murdered. Lots of people being murdered. They'd just run their horses over protesters and kill a bunch of them and stuff like that, and just shoot them all. When you find out about the labor movement versus the what do you call them? You know, people like J.P. Morgan and all these people. There was a lot of murdering going on, and so of course you'd get people who would see that or hear about that, and they would turn into fascists, basically. And you get the same thing now. You get people who are just tired of seeing black people gunned down in the streets, and just the intolerance of the system and all that. And so you end up with these, what is it called, Antifa or something? Anyway, anti-fascists. And of course they're going to go too far, but they didn't kill anybody. They didn't even hurt anybody. They broke a couple of windows. You know, make them pay to have the windows replaced, give them a month in jail or something, and let them go home. Why are you ruining people's lives over this? Anyway, I'll do, since I am a communist, and I do have to deal with the bad communists, especially that there were, although this hype about them being, okay, some of them maybe did have links to communist Russia. Maybe that was just how they were trying to promote their, maybe they were getting help. I don't know. From what I've seen, and I'll do a whole segment on this show, Seeing Red. And if you want, you can get on here and go to, you can either try and type this in. Probably not. Anyway, just type in Seeing Red and you'll probably see my playlist, which has the entire show. This was some kind of PBS documentary, and it's great. I mean, it shows you what great people they were, whether they did anything wrong or not. And even if they did anything wrong, I'm fairly sure they did it all for the right reasons. I mean, you'll see if you watch the show. And I'll cover the show. I'll start up another segment and I'll go through everything in this particular show. And we'll talk about it. And I'll probably compile other stuff to throw in to kind of back me up. They're following an establishment way of doing things that is not in our interest. It's in the interest of funneling money from our Medicaid, from our health care, into the pockets of the rich. You know, when it comes to rich people, they might take better care of them. I don't know how that works. Maybe they automatically know. I mean, let's face it, 90% of the doctors and dentists in your area won't accept you on Medicaid anyway. So so you're not getting the same health care as the 90% who do take rich people, right? People on different insurance. So that's what they're doing. They're segregating us. They're segregating the Medicaid people, and they're not really taking care of the Medicaid people. You know, oh yeah, they go after diabetes. They go after anything that they can throw their pills at and get your Medicaid dollars. I mean, we need to start refusing them those Medicaid dollars. I'm getting so fucking sick of not knowing how much they're charging my Medicaid. I mean, there's no way for me to even know. Well, there is. I can get a itemized, but you have to call it in, and I only just heard about it the other day. So they make it just about impossible, right? Well, Elodia, that's a nice post about health care. I just bit a Republican. See, these people, they love to hate other people. They want somebody to blame it on, and they just want to be assholes to each other. I mean, Republicans hate Democrats, Democrats hate Republicans, but nothing's really happening there. You can hate it all again, never again. See, this is not where the focus belongs, people. You're all friends of mine on Facebook. Well, Facebook friends, that's what I call you. You're not really friends. Some of you are downright assholes, actually. But I will keep everybody in my group or in my friends list as I can get, in the hope that I can get to some of you. I mean, and Facebook does this, where they just post, somebody's trying to post a link, and it doesn't show. This just happened the other day. It used to be you could post a YouTube link. Now when you post a YouTube link, it doesn't show up. I mean, it should show up, right? So you should see this, or some other, like a picture and a description of the link. Extreme earthquake activity, multiple. Well, you know, you're just saying that because there was just a big earthquake. There's always been big earthquakes, and there always will be, but generally speaking, there's less and less of them. But, you know, what YouTube's doing here is, I guess they're going to war with YouTube. So they're making it so when you post a YouTube link, it doesn't give you the name of the what it's about and a picture. They do that with, that's why I don't post just the link to my news. I post the group so that it'll give you a picture to look at. I mean, I'm just trying to make things nice for people. It's a colorful little pic that says what it's about. Democratic Party headquarters news. And, you know, women have always been changing the world, but doesn't change the fact that there's still all kinds of like, they don't get paid as well and all that kind of stuff. So we need to just keep on working on that. The best way to do that is to beat the establishment Democrats. I mean, Hillary Clinton is just a picture of the obedient wife, right? I mean, she even cleaned up her husband's messes and, you know, his fucking around and all that kind of stuff. and then she tried to ride his coattails and failed, except for what could be given to her. You know, they gave her Secretary of State. They gave her Senate seat for New York City. I mean, New York City, you don't earn those seats. Well, you do by serving the establishment, and that's the ultimate establishment, right? New York's richest people. They gave her that because they were wanting to give her a resume. They gave her her resume. Her resume is just made up shit. It's not anything she ever earned. I agree, Tamara. Boycott the NFL. Copernic. I'm just going to start calling Colin Copernicus because I can never remember that name of his. But we should turn off the NFL anyway. Violent sports should not be. I played rugby, and I'm sitting here in pain. My hip and my back, where they tore up my back. Nobody should be subjecting their kids to that. Nobody should even allow. It shouldn't exist. Violence of any kind of sports or anything that's violent should all not exist. Should just get rid of it. Margaret Snyder Heinickel wants to tell us that there's a hurricane. I think we can get that news. Just flip on the TV and you'll see nothing about the but the hurricane. Just a quote from Jimi Hendrix. When the power of love overcomes the love of power, the world will know peace. That's a nice quote. Last night, fascists vandalized the monument. Why do they hate us so much? Why do they hate good people, right? They hate anybody who is selfless, and it just boggles the mind how they can justify in their mind just being bad, right? I mean, okay, so they think that minorities, and especially blacks and Jews, are an enormous threat to their, and what, they think that the white race belongs to them? You know, it's not up to them. We don't belong to them. We white people don't belong to them. We don't need them to protect us. We certainly don't want them protecting us. So it's all about having bad thoughts in your heads, having a incorrect model of reality, which leads people to believe in things that are not true. They don't exist. I mean, white people aren't under any kind of enormous threat. The world's under an enormous threat because it keeps on, you people keep on popping out more and more babies, even though all of the symptoms of overpopulation exist. I mean, there's starvation, there's people can't get enough drinking water, there's all kinds of disease because of either too much water or not enough water. All of those are symptoms of overpopulation, of people cramming into places, and not just overpopulation. And maybe that's why the rich don't give a shit. Maybe because they know that it's not really about overpopulation yet, anyway. But it's more about them cramming people into, I mean, why are there millions of people living in the floodplains of Bangladesh? I mean, every year it floods. Every year we see them up to their waist in water, and now we see the Rohingya. They're forced to go out there. They're forced to stay there. They're forced out of Myanmar, Burma, whatever the fuck they're calling it this week. Anyway, so that seems to me, and if it seems to me, it's probably right. It seems to me like the rich, you know, hogging all the land, forcing the rest of the world to cram into the floodplains or who knows what, you know, where there's more likely to be a bad earthquake or whatever. But these racists, you know, thank God for Antifa or whatever it's called, right? The anti-fascists. They're arising now. They're probably the brown shirts of tomorrow, but in the meantime, they're doing good work. I like what they did during the Charleston thing. They protected a lot of good people. Show everything anymore. I don't know how to copy and paste. I've tried. What? Really? You don't know how to copy and paste? You just go like this. You just go copy and paste. In fact, I'll just post that. And then I'll say dumbass. I mean, how hard is that, right? Gail Housewort. Is that a wart in a house? To be wild is not to be crazy or psychotic. God, I mean, who cares? Terry Romaine. Here, let me give you something to watch. You can watch the show. Yeah, I mean, for people who post this stuff that's so irrelevant and so personal, I mean, it's personal to them, not to us, right? I just post the news show, and, you know, who cares, Terry Roman, what you think about the weather? Breathe deeply. Breathe this. Now, don't get me wrong. I love all these people, and I care about them, but I care about them in a different way. No amount of me or anybody else personally caring one at a time about anything is going to matter. What's going to matter is when we create institutions and systems that care about everybody. So that whether, you know, we could have a department of, well, I'm never going to get that word to come up. Oh yeah, how about a department of trivial matters? So that these people, you know, they could go in and they could talk to somebody and they could say, "Hi all, no rain yet, but cool, love it. Very still, loving fall. Favorite time of year, stay well. Breathe deeply. Kisses and hugs." You know, because it's really no point in putting it here. I mean, 99% of the time, I wouldn't even read it if I wasn't doing this show, right? I just post my news and move right on, you know, giving her something to do. Now she can read. She's got 2 hours of Democratic Party headquarters news. There's a link to the YouTube, and she can go watch it, and that'll give her something to do for a little while. Why do we care that Iggy, I can't even pronounce her name. Louise Thorogood, Threadgood, Threadgoody. I don't know. Why do we care that she's a Jackson Sports and Orthopedic Spine? I mean, I don't tell you every time I go to the doctor. Is this just a product of cell phone activity? If it is, turn it the fuck off and tell it to stop sending notifications to your... The only posts I want to see from any of you is anti-establishment posts, okay? So you want to talk about climate change? Fine, that's all. You know, anything about our platform. So anything about our platform is going to be anti-establishment. Other than that, I don't really want to hear from you. I mean, I don't mind posts like a quote from Jimi Hendrix or, you know, that's kind of anti-establishment in itself. I mean, he was anti-establishment. Sort of. Sort of was and sort of wasn't. Yeah, we're all gonna write a bestseller. Write it. Don't talk about it. And these people who think that their philosophy that they've picked up somewhere, anywhere, is somehow, I mean, how tired are we about people trying to tell us how they can, trying to run our lives, right? I mean, they're like, I can tell you how to live your life, that maybe proves your point. You say, we want value for the money we've already paid, and you should too. Well, you know, the way I see it is, the day you take your first breath, coming out of the womb, you begin paying, and you begin receiving. I mean, somebody was there to catch you so you didn't hit the ground, and swaddle you in a cloth of some kind and hand you to your mother, and the expectation is there that you will grow up and contribute and maybe keep some other poor baby from hitting the ground. There's no, you know, this idea of earning and selling and buying and all this capitalist crap. It has nothing to do with the reality. Well, it does because it's forced to. I mean, how else would the world even work if we didn't take care of each other and take care of ourselves? So, you know, I mean, healthcare is a right, not a privilege. We all know it. Right. Not a privilege. This is one I'll never spell right. I mean, why can't we spell things like they're pronounced? What's wrong with what is it called? Photonics or whatever. Anyway, don't ask me to remember one more word. I'm all filled up with words. And Todd Jasper says no intelligent species destroys their own environment. Well, some do. You know, we are the most intelligent species. And I know we like to think we're stupid. Or people like to think everybody else is stupid. So everybody thinks everybody else is stupid. Can that be possible? Can everybody be stupid, maybe? No, because we're the most intelligent creatures on the face of the earth. I mean, how many ants do you know, or dogs do you know, that can understand concepts like environment. They can't even understand the idea, the concept of an environment. We are for sure the most intelligent species. Now, are there problems that make us in a way stupid? Yes. But that doesn't make us any more or less intelligence from a species point of view.
One by one about the states that President Trump called out. North Korea, what do you think has to be done? I mean, in all these cases, it involves more than one country and that country. This involves more than the U.S.
North Korea is simple, right? If what everybody tells me is true, and that is that they're actually not insane, that Kim Jong-un is not a nut job, and he's just doing this to protect his half of, North Korea, which for all intents and purposes looks to be the case. On the other hand, South Korea wants to reunite the country, but they don't want to end up being part of being ruled by a fascist kind of regime. Now, whether that's what North Korea is or not is debatable, and as to the reasons that they would be fascist would be because of all the pressure they've been under and all the death and horror that they've experienced at the hands of the United States. So the solution is to send a guy like me, not me, but send a guy like me over there, who has the authority to make a deal, to sit down with Kim Jong-un or your counterpart and just hash out exactly what it would take, exactly what they want. Obviously, we're not going to let them conquer South Korea and make it theirs and rule it. So we would have to make a deal that would work for both sides. And, there'd be a lot of details, and I don't want to get into all the details, but I would think that one of the details would be that U.S. troops and for sure U.S. troops and military would have to leave the area. Now, I don't think we should pull out every single American, even though they're a problem, and they would probably be a problem for North Korea. So we would have to work out a way for North Korea and South Korea to slowly repair this horrible rift that the United States has created. And so you would have to get the Chinese and the Russians, and on our side the United States and European and Australian, Canadian, whatever interests, to all play well together. You'd have to come up with an agreement where they all agree to behave themselves, right? So, at the end of the day, you're going to have to negotiate all the way down to the economies of both countries and how they will interact, and the government and all that. I mean, if they reunification, then you're going to have to figure out some way it would be interesting, right? Seeing Russians and Chinese and Americans and Australians and Indians and all the countries around all trying to work together without creating a problem that would just take us right back to, division again. Okay, so obviously there's going to be, if we don't want to be at each other's throats like this because of people like Ronnie Rump and, well, you know, it's not him. It's the military-industrial complex. You guys have a lot of names for it, you know, deep state, shadow government. I mean, do we really need any more names for it when all it is a bunch of rich people? I mean, when it comes to South Korea, what is the real problem? Well, if you're like me, you grew up all your life seeing made in South Korea, little things on your stuff that you bought, you know, made in South Korea, made in South Korea, made in Taiwan. And so why do we protect Taiwan and South Korea, or protect them? Isn't that a joke? I mean, that's not really what's going on, right? I mean, use your head a little bit. What's really going on here? They don't like Americans. They don't like to give them jobs. They don't like to pay them what they're worth. Okay? Either that, or you can say that the capitalist system's broken. You know? Because one way or another, they're getting people in China, well, places that they've taken away from China. You know, it used to be Hong Kong, but they had to give that back, and you used to see made in Hong Kong on everything. Made in Taiwan, made in South Korea. You don't see made in North Korea. You know, now that we've worked out a bit of a deal, we see made in China. So it's all about shipping our jobs overseas, over to cheaper, where there's cheaper labor, right? And is it really cheaper? I mean, that's why you have to ask yourself, well, maybe they just don't like Americans, right? I mean, Americans are gimme, 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 and they're probably like, well, we'll give you, but we'll take away your ability to pay for things. I mean, they've been, this thing about shipping jobs overseas is new, okay? It's come up since like 2000. But the fact is it's gone on forever. It just, I guess, took that long for people to figure out what was going on. I don't know. People are slow to come to figure things out, but the difference between the people and the rich, well, the rich figure it out too, but the difference is that the people figure out what's right. The rich figure out what's right for them, okay? So that's what's going on with South Korea. All those little stickers that say made in South Korea, well, they're afraid that they'd lose their little sweatshop, right? If there was ever some kind of agreement. I mean, obviously South Korea is run by the United States. If they can bring in THAAD missile systems without even, with the president of South Korea not even knowing, well then, who's really in charge, right? I mean, come on. And our media portrays South Korea as being some kind of independent country all the time. Just with 20,000 American troops there to protect them from North Korea. Can't they protect themselves? You know? I doubt that North Korea would be any threat to South Korea if you took the American troops out of there. I don't think they would, like, try to conquer them. I think they would try to live side by side with them, and that they would eventually integrate. Everybody would become, and eventually they'd reunite, just like Germany. I mean, countries eventually get their shit together if they can get the United States out of their face. So
to North Korea, as does Iran, of course. What has to happen with North Korea?
First, we have to avoid a nuclear war. And a nuclear...
Avoid the nuclear war? Do you really think that he's serious? Do you really think there's going to be a nuclear war? Because, you know, every time he tweets something or he says something in a speech, you guys start screaming that he's a nut job and he's going to blow everybody up, and then it never happens. I mean, what he did to Syria wasn't jack shit. He called them and gave them 2 hours warning. You know, if they didn't get out of there in time, if somebody got killed, I think one guy got killed. Well, that was really their own fault, wasn't it? They were warned that we were going to blow up their airfield. When you look up Hillary, when you Google Hillary, you find out that it's mostly right-wing nut jobs that are using my word. My word. I made it up. I made up Hillary. I made it up a long time before anybody used it, and I used it a lot before it started catching on. I just didn't know because I don't hang around with right-wing nut jobs on the internet. I didn't know that that's where it was really catching on. I mean, this guy says they will throw some crumbs your way, like the transgender ban that will make you regain hope because after all he's better than Hillary, right? Laugh my ass off. So, I mean, you get the nut jobs using the word, and I can see that's why I get so much shit for being, you know, you get so much crap for being anti-Hillary. They always say that you're Republican, GOP, right-wing, conservative. No, hardly. It was my anti-Hillary movement that opened up a door for Bernie to get in. I mean, we're progressives. We support progressives. We obviously don't support conservatives or the right wing, right? I mean, this much is obvious, but that's not obvious to somebody who doesn't know that. So it does seem strange that the longer-lived people in government are those who seem to be wrong for this nation and its laws. Hillary. You don't want to talk about Carter. Carter is a great man. Still a great man. Anyway, this is GOP crap. Only they could put Carter in with these other people. McCain, come on. McCain and Carter are like polar opposites. I know McCain always tries to pass himself off. I mean, every day he puts on a new mask, right? And my name for him, which is never caught on, is McInsane. I can't believe that I tried to get it to catch on for a long time, and instead they went for McSane. And that would be sane. He's not insane, he's McInsane. What's wrong with that name? That's a perfectly good name. I had a really hard time coming up with one for, what's her name? I can see her ugly face. Palin. Sarah Palin. And I just came up with Phelan, as in failing. That's not a very good one, though. And I didn't even try and make it catch on. I kept thinking I might come up with something better. Phelan. I almost did come up with one now. I thought, what rhymes with Sarah? There isn't much. I'm sure I could come up with one. I come up with all the other ones. I like my one for Obama. Obamas. O-B-O-M-B. O-bomb. Like drop a bomb. U.S., and I put the U.S. in capital letters. They're still butthurt Hillary didn't win. Anonymous.
Do you think New York State should recognize gay marriage?
No.
No. Okay.
I believe that marriage is not just a bond, but a sacred bond between a man and a woman.
I have not supported same-sex marriage. I've supported civil partnerships and contractual relationships.
I support marriage for lesbian and gay couples. I support it personally and as a matter of policy and law.
So you're saying your opinion on gay marriage changed, or you changed your mind?
I have to say, I think you are being very persistent, but you are playing with my words and playing with what is such an
I'm just trying to clarify
issue.
so I can understand.
No, I don't think you are trying to clarify. I think you're trying to say that, I used to be opposed and now I'm in favor and I did it for political reasons, and that's just flat wrong. So let me just state what I feel like you are implying and repudiate it. I have a strong record. I have a great commitment to this issue, and I am proud of what I've done and the progress we're making.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just want to clarify what I was saying. No, I was saying that you maybe really believe this all along, but, believe in gay marriage all along, but felt for political reasons America wasn't ready yet and you couldn't say it. That's what I was thinking.
No, that is not true.
It really is great how long you've supported gay marriage.
Yes.
I could have supported it sooner.
Well, you did it pretty soon.
Could have been sooner.
Fair point.
Okay, I have mentioned quite a few times that I'm a communist. I just want to explain that. Okay, I want to explain what I mean when I say I'm a communist. Okay, I'm not a Marxist by any stretch of the imagination. I can appreciate what he said. I can appreciate the basic idea that basically what I'm saying is that I believe in the system. I graduated from one of the top 10 business schools in the United States, and I think I know enough about economic systems to say that I am sure that a command and what's called a command economy, which I also call it a control economy, command and control economy, as opposed to market systems, is just a smarter way to do things, smarter way to, if your intent is to provide for your people, right, and give them the best possible lifestyle, economic lifestyle, then command and control is much better than market economies. And as I've expressed in other segments, market economies, I believe, are easily manipulated by the rich to make it a system where they take care of themselves, and they, some of them purposely try and put people down, try and keep them down economically. Anyway, and the whole political side, or power struggles and all that kind of stuff, I'm a Democrat. I believe in democracy. I believe in direct representation, so I'm not even a Democrat really. I'm some kind of, what do you call a, I guess a representative? Ist? I don't know. I don't know what you call me. I believe in direct representation of the people through voting and participation in education. You know, an educated electorate voting themselves on the issues, and those that voting actually being, you know, instead of electing somebody else and getting them to make the decisions and supposedly study the issues, instead of doing it that way, I believe the people should be educated in the issues and then should vote. I don't believe in anything fascist. You know, the communists you hear about, when you hear about Stalin and you hear about Mao, and I don't know, you know, Stalin, I do kind of believe he was a dictator, but I don't even think he was a communist. I mean, I think he turned Russia from a communist country into an oligarchy. I think it goes back that far. Mao, I think he was a real communist. And to this day, there's one town that still does the communist thing in China. So, in my experience and from my studies, what communism is really about is not so much an economic system, although it is an economic system, but what it's about is, and what its history is, and the people who I've seen who were in it, what they were about was just trying to either help themselves or mainly help all the millions of people who suffer under the capitalist system. I mean, it's not hard for you to say, you know, I don't like it, right? I don't like it that people are begging on the streets. I don't like it that people are obviously poor. You know, you look at them and you can see that, you know, if they're going through a garbage can. And I don't like a lot of things about the capitalist system. You know, so that's what I see when I see communists. And a lot of you are communists without even knowing it, because if that's what communism really is, you know, people trying to unionize, people trying to organize, people trying to boycott, people trying to do things, because, I mean, what other reason is there than they care, right? And when I'm going to show you a show that I watched, and I think it kind of explains it very well. Now, in the show, there's evidence that people did I don't think they colluded with Russia, but I think they looked to Russia, you know, maybe even for help. I don't understand. They never really explain in this one or in anything else I've ever seen whether the Communist Party of the United States tried to work with the Communist Party of Russia, and if they did, who dealt with who, and what was the outcome of those dealings. Nothing really hardcore, and nobody in any of these videos or in anything I've ever read ever talks about having actual connections with the Communist Party of Russia or Cuba, for that matter. I mean, yeah, there's probably some people who know some people because the two peoples interact, but I don't see any. So I don't see this kind of what they talk about and even joke about on Monty Python, the world communist conspiracy or whatever they call it. I don't see that. But what I do see is lots and lots of people who are unhappy with the rich people running the government in a way where they don't do anything about poverty, homelessness, low wages, you know, at the bottom. And we talk about low minimum wage now, and people are just starting to talk about a basic income. And let me just say right here real quick, I'm not for people freeloading. If there's work to be done, I'm right there. You know, I work all the time anyway, so what else is new? But I don't like working for somebody else. You know, it's like, oh, we'll pay you enough to barely survive while you're producing enough to make our dreams all come true, right? I mean, that's another thing I see in communists. I see them being just like, what? When it comes to that, you know, when it comes to the whole, you know, you build my house, and then you can go and try and figure out how to build yourself a house, kind of thing. It's the whole greedy capitalist, rich bitch type thing. So let's just see here what I think communism, what it kind of means to me.
Hello. In the traditional motion picture story, the villains are usually defeated. The ending is a happy one. I can make no such promise for the picture you're about to watch. The story isn't over. You and the audience are part of the conflict. How we meet the communist challenge depends on you. What has happened so far, what is happening now, is far from encouraging.
And where do you think this is? It's communist-inspired rioting in San Francisco, USA. Look at those faces. The face of communism in America. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Herbert Philbrick.
As I travel around, I still...
Okay, well, that's...
Okay, so we saw a bunch of that in the clip that I showed. The beginning of this was we already covered it. And I'm not going to get a lot into how horrible and mean and obnoxious these red scare people are, red baiting. You know, Richard Nixon admitted in some of his writing or something he recorded or something that he just made up the fact that his opponent in his first race for the Senate or something, that was bankrolled by Harriman, by the way, that he just made up that he was a communist. He said he knew that he wasn't a communist. It just was a way for him to win. He just made up, said, oh, he's a commie, he's red, he's, you know. So they even admit, you know, what assholes they are, the conservatives. So I'm not going to, I mean, you're going to see it on here about how awful they are from time to time. But what I'm focusing on in my viewing of this show, which is called Seeing Red, and this is on, you can get on YouTube and see it anytime you want, is the people who they were attacking, the communists, American communists, and how it, you know, how it backs up my opinion that all they are is good people. I mean, that's really the big fight here, right? Is there's a whole bunch of assholes, in my opinion, who constantly say these people like are horrible, they're subversive, they're trying to ruin the country, etc., etc. I say just the opposite, right? And so do they, and so do all the people who know them, pretty much, or were part of the movement. The other thing is, some of this stuff is from like 1932 or 35 and the 20s and stuff. So I just want to say this kind of revolution to try to help poor people and to try to help the bottom from the bottom up has been going on for, well, certainly longer than there's video. So these videos show you it. You know, I watch young people nowadays, and they act like they invented all this stuff. I didn't invent all this stuff, and neither did these people who are in this video, and they go back to the 20s. Some of these videos I see in this thing, we're just getting caught up in it. I mean, we just got caught up in it. I don't pretend to be like the inventor of communism. I'm just a communist. And my communism only goes so far, as you've seen. You know, I don't believe in. I think we can bring about. I don't believe in like overthrowing the government and bringing about change all of a sudden. I do believe in winning and taking over the government and running the country. Not me personally, but my ideas that are the same as everybody else's. Basically, I'm a progressive. But I don't believe in doing that like in some kind of sudden or violent way of doing things. I think we'll win. If it doesn't happen in my lifetime, that's okay. I'm, you know, a couple generations, and then we save a lot of people, right? And I'm not saying don't try and do it as quick as possible, but don't rush it. And certainly don't try and do it violently or in a way that is not keeping with. I mean, part of my communism is pacifism. It's kind of like trying to turn that key, you know? You got an old rusty key and you got a bad door and you're just trying to get it to turn, you know, finesse it. Finesse it. Use every bit of what you know about people and the world, and, you know, do it smart.
That's your decision.
It was a decision I had to make. A lot of work I do is either federally or state funded. So, you know, they might say, well, we can't have a known communist. But then I said, if I die, why shouldn't there be a record? How could I have been so good when I was active and be so bad because I tell them I'm a communist? And I felt that I owe it to everybody who knows me to know who I was and who I am and why I'm doing what I'm doing.
It's not easy on friends and the family, but I really believe it's better to put your cards on the table.
How did you feel sort of proclaiming to the world that you are part of the communist
Well, while you were gone, Ben and I talked about that.
Oh, really?
Yes, we did. We feel like a lot of people are going to be surprised if they find out. And I feel those who know us and like us, it'll be real good that they find out if they don't know.
How about those people who might feel negative?
Well, touch it.
So you can see what I'm talking about. I mean, these people don't look like, you know, they're rioting in the streets and by the way, there's a lot of them. And I mean, back then in the 20s and 30s, there were a lot of them. I mean, everybody, the history, the media, I guess, tries to portray it as some small group of individuals who were really just out to make money, take over the country, and make them the rich, just replace the rich, not, you know. And by the way, I've mentioned many times that I don't believe in in the redistribution of wealth. I believe in the building of wealth. We'll let the rich have their wealth, or at least their lifestyles. Even better than that, they don't have a guarantee of those lifestyles under capitalism, even though they do in a way, but they're sneaky about it. They don't really talk about that. Their wealth is their guarantee of continued wealth. Anyway, I don't advocate destroying or taking their wealth away from them. Taking their wealth away from them would not do anything for us. You can't pack 1 million poor people into a couple people's mansions. You know, taking away their wealth doesn't do anything for us. What we have to do is take away their ability to not allow us to build wealth, because that's what they've been doing all along. It's not like the country can only support so much wealth, and so the wealthy people get it, and they keep it, and they run the country and keep everybody from being really poor. You know, it's kind of the threat of starvation, so I'm talking about we'll build wealth. We'll create new wealth. You'll see a jump in GNP too if we continue to use such capitalist ways of keeping track of the economy, because the only room for real growth of the economy is at the bottom, where people don't have enough. I mean, you put everybody in a decent house with decent appliances and supplied with proper amount of food and some kind of transportation, whether we do public or we do cars, electric cars, I hope, you know, run on renewable energy. So I don't advocate. I mean, you notice Bernie doesn't either. He talks about income equality, income inequality, but he doesn't really talk about taking away from the rich and giving to the poor. Although other people kind of, because we've seen other people make up pictures of him in a Robin Hood hat. Well, that's not right. I mean, it's cute and everything, but, and I've even got the meme, you know, of a little girl holding a Bernie with a Robin Hood hat on, and that's fun, that's nice, but the fact is that's not what we want to do. We don't want to take away all of the rich people's money. I know some of you would. Some of you believe they deserve to be punished, but no, that's not what we're all about. What we're about is building wealth, creating wealth at the bottom, eliminating the poor, basically by making them, you know, okay. I mean, I'm not saying we're going to be like that funny skit that they had in Saturday Night Live where the whole town was rich because anybody could go down to the river and catch a fish and wish on it, and they could wish for, you know, 10,000 bars of gold or something. So the whole town was like, everybody was wearing like the robes of the kings and queens, and they had jewels all over them, and they owned castles. They all had castles, and no, I'm not talking. I doubt that's. I mean, maybe you could. I don't know. I doubt it though. But what we could do though is start out with like tiny houses for really poor people or something to that effect. Public places, jobs where jobs are needed for them, and a reason for them to get up and take a shower and get dressed, and enough of a lifestyle so that they don't end up looking like you know, beat piece of shit like so many poor people end up because of lack of health care and lack of exercise and a lack of just lousy lifestyles, alcohol and drug abuse, all kinds of stuff makes people look like Keith Richards or something. I know he thinks he's good looking.
The great American taboo. Yet between the 1930s and the 1950s, almost 1 million Americans passed through the Communist Party of the United States. You'll meet some of them in this film. We've chosen to look at the backbone of the party, the men and women of the rank and file, who were members for many years. This generation came of age in the Depression. They made a decision to be radicals, to challenge the very fabric of their society.
Remind you of anybody you know? Like maybe yourself? I know you. It cracks me up when I see young people thinking like what they're doing is something new. Like activism is something new. Nah.
How that decision affected the rest of their lives is the thread of our story. And it's by no means a simple story to tell. For many people, this was the first time they have spoken openly about their lives in the American...
And it's hard to imagine that all these people are dead now. Such great people. I would have loved to have been alive back then. Well, maybe not, because all this was crushed in the 20s and 30s. I mean, McCarthyism came later and crushed yet another uprising of socialists, communists. It's all the same thing, sentiment.
Communist Party.
Party headquarters over on 13th Street in an old loft building. That's where it was. And on the 5th floor was the New York district, and on the 9th floor was the Central Committee. I'll never forget it, see? So I went to the 5th floor. I went down, I went down to see the district leader, see?
And did you sign up?
I was in the party.
You signed up just like that?
Just like that.
Was that a big decision to make?
No, it wasn't any decision at all in those days. Let me tell you the truth. It was just what, with my background, you had to do. Nobody else was doing anything.
The image that I grew up with of the party was that it's this subversive organization of people in trench coats and people spying, you know, all this kind of stuff, you know. Oh, really? That it's a heavy thing to be a communist. And to say I was a communist, that's a fairly strong thing. So that's why I say when you joined, weren't you scared? Weren't you?
No. I didn't see anybody around with trench coats and things.
But you know what I mean, right?
Yeah, I know, sure, I know what you know.
See, that's what I grew up with, is what communism...
No. Not then it wasn't.
They weren't, you know, having mass recruiting of joining a communist party. You had to prove that you were a worthy individual that they could trust. And I thought I was doing good work. I mean, I was the leader of our youth, you know, organization, and... but they concentrated on my brother. They weren't recruiting any women. So they took my... There was one woman, she was the section organizer's wife. So they would take him to communist conventions and they would give him literature, but he wasn't that interested. So finally, they decided they needed someone to take the minutes of their meetings and collect the dues, so they approached me. And I was very thrilled that I had the honor of joining the Communist Party.
Didn't it make you worried that the communists were talking about overthrowing the government?
Didn't worry me a bit. Didn't worry me because I was suffering from the discrimination and the humiliation of discrimination, you know. I'm coming up from the South, and I think, you know, at last, freedom. And I walk into a restaurant and they say, we don't serve niggers.
You know, a lot of people say, when people are radical, go back where you came from. Well, if I was sent back where I came from, it would be across the street from Kruger's Brewery on Hill Street in Orange, New Jersey. January 30th, 1950. That's where I was born. And some people say I brag about being a street nigger, but our family was in the gutter. You know, the street was something we wanted to climb up to. We would have loved to get up on the curb. This was in the middle of the Depression. 1932, 33, 34. 70% of the black males in Harlem were unemployed.
So it's becoming obvious from what we're seeing that a lot of the communist movement was rooted in anti-racism, huh? And race and class have always been, you know, synonymous in America, right? Up until recently. It's just recently that the establishment has decided that there's a lot of white people out there, just like in the 30s and in the 50s with McCarthyism. They see a lot of white people getting smart, right? That's why they call us hippies. Huh? I was a hippie when I was a kid, because we're hip. We become hip to the truth. That's what a hippie is. And that's what happened back then, obviously. You know, in the 20s and 30s, when the labor movement rose up, it was because a lot of people were hip to what was really going on. In the 50s, because of a lot of people. And so what they've done now, and well, they did it like blatantly back then, but what they do now is they punish people for being hip and spreading hip. I mean, if you do like I'm doing right now and try to tell everybody about how fucked up the rich people are, then they'll work it. I mean, if you make enough noise that you get noticed, they'll definitely crush you. Now, they'll make sure you never get a decent job, you never get paid over $30,000 a year or something. They have their ways, and they do a lot of things.
For a family to survive, both my sister and I had to work, and the best work we could find was dancing at the Cotton Club in Harlem.
Hot ginger and dynamite. We think nothing but that and wow, boy, back next second, better fellas, you back around the way we wag.
It was designed like a plantation. It was an all-black show, all black waiters, but all white guests. And they really wanted to be slave masters. They were there to be entertained by...
You see that ad? I mean, they just infiltrate every little part of our lives. Now, I'm not saying that that's horrible, but isn't it kind of creepy? The way that they find out what you looked at, and then they come in the middle of while you're doing something like this, which is all about the people. And they squeeze in there like, hey, by the way, you know, we got some nice hard drives that you might like. Gee, thanks.
Us hip-wriggling blacks with all of our exotic and sensual capacities laid bare for them. I couldn't swallow it. I said, what's in this country that here we are scuffling and buck dancing for $35 a week? And people can come from downtown in tuxedos and evening clothes, white tie and stiff collar and diamonds and everything, and spend $1,000 for a night's entertainment. So I saw in...
And, you know, that's an important point. Because money, it becomes meaningless. I mean, obviously it's essential to people who are poor. I mean, they're scraping for every dollar. But at some point, it becomes obvious that what money really is for ultra wealthy people is just a ticket to do whatever they want whenever they want. There's always poor people out there they can buy off. You want sex with a hot chick? There's always some girl who will let you into her bedroom for, you know, I mean, if you've got all kinds of money, and it's not like it's ever going to make them rich, you know, the people who are taken advantage of. And, you know, so money is just a tool for rich people. It's not really like, oh, I've got enough money that I can pay for my kids to go to school and da-da-da and da-da-da. No, it's more like I can do anything I want.
Life itself, what class distinctions meant. And the more communists I met, the more I liked what they had to say and what they were doing. Because I saw that of all the people who were talking about solving problems, programs, and so forth, when there was a picket line, they were out front.
I don't care if it was on 14th Street, 42nd Street, 34th Street, every community. There was some guy up in that soapbox going away, you know, the working class, the capitalist class had nothing in common. Nothing. You know, you'd ponder that. And then it went on and on and on about how they exploited you. And you'd have to sit there, you thought about it, you think, Jesus, that's so right. That son of a bitch is up there eating the filet mignon, and we're down here eating burnt liver.
People are queer, they're always crowing, scrambling and rushing about. Why don't they stop someday and dress themselves this way? Why?
Burnt liver. Oh, God. I remember once a week my mom would cook liver because she thought it was good for us because it would give us iron. I haven't had a piece of liver since I was 15 years old. But, I think old ideas die hard, right? I don't think she's had a piece of liver in that long.
Are we here? Where are we going? It's time that we found out.
I mean, it's nasty. Well, it's not that bad, and you get used to it, but it's like, I don't know, it's like some kind of material that you're trying to eat rather than a piece of meat.
We're not here to stay. We're on a short holiday. Life is just a bowl of cherries. Don't take it serious. It's too mysterious.
It's gross. No, I'll tell you this. Almost anything's good deep fried, batter fried, right? If you had taken liver and cut it up into pieces and deep fried it, batter fried it, it probably would have tasted okay. I know that chicken hearts taste good and things like that if they're like fried chicken type things.
What this country is coming to, I sure would like to know.
So people were taking the time to document squalor. That's how bad things were back then. And, you know, we think things are bad now when we run into a recession. It's nothing like it was back then. I mean, thank God for Theodore Roosevelt or FDR, and the New Deal. I mean, that changed life for most people, but so many didn't get to, even now, a lot of people don't get checks, don't get any kind of, there's people suffering is all I'm trying to say. Not like this, though.
If they don't do something, by and by, the rich will live and the poor will die. Doggone, the panic is on.
There wasn't a day went by that there wasn't some communist in some particular neighborhood leading a delegation of 25 people down to the welfare board or some other board. These people are hungry, feed them and give them something to eat, give them rent or do something. There was this type of activity going on.
Now, when you take a group of people, 25, 30 people, who don't know from nothing, don't know.
See, now these people have the memories that I crave. That communists, that's what they were about. They weren't about overthrowing governments. They probably would have liked to. I mean, the government was fucked up, right? But what they were about was trying to help these poor people who were so, you know, I mean, back then it wasn't like now. It's like the rich just didn't, I mean, I'm not saying the rich care, but they were the only ones that anybody could turn to, right? I mean, there was nothing being done for people, and they were all suffering real bad. And we see that again now. Every time there's, at least from what I'm seeing, every time that there's Republicans in power, there's all these people on the streets that are kind of desperate. And the desperation, you can just sense the desperation, right? Well, and then once the establishment Democrats get in, that seems to go away. But then there's another type, just a lower level version of the same thing going on, right? There's kind of a communism at the bottom, so that the middle class ends up getting pulled into the lower class. For the most part, most of the really bad suffering and lack of health care and all that kind of stuff goes away for a little while. And to me, it's just a facade. It's just, oh, well, we'll give them the Democrats for a while so that we relieve some of the pressure that's going on. But we're never going to really try and fix anything. We just use the Democratic Party as like a release valve, or you know, lower the pressure. This country at the moment has just got too much pressure. But the same shit's going on. As a matter of fact, I see it going on all over the world. You know, when you hear about people, the police coming down and yanking away their sleeping bags or their blankets or whatever just before a freeze, right? I mean, what are you trying to do? You're trying to take away their last bit of freedom, okay? If they go to the homeless shelters and the other places you've set up, then they become slaves. I mean, they're not allowed to do anything. You run their lives. You, in many cases, you indoctrinate them in religions. You don't allow them to ever drink. You don't allow them to ever smoke pot. You know, all of a sudden, the things, because let's face it, I mean, if you got money, you can do whatever you want in terms of those kind of things, party and have a good time. But if you're in a homeless shelter, people tell you, as far as they're concerned, you're a loser. And if you want to live there, you're going to do like they say, because you're a loser. You know, so you lose the right to a life, you know, to be your own person. I mean, no more house with a lock on the front door, a little bit of privacy. None of that. It all goes when you become that desperate. And they know it. And that's why so many people would rather sleep under a bridge or under an overpass or wherever they sneak off to try and live, so that they don't have to give up all their freedom. It's disgusting. It's horrible what the capitalist system and the capitalists and the establishment does to the people at the very bottom.
Rheumatism and communism or what the hell, they just don't know nothing. And you take them down, lead them down to, say, a welfare director, where the guy jumps up on the desk. I mean, he's berserk. This is what was happening them days. And the people come out victorious, where you do get a check, you do get your box of food, the gas, they sign it on, or whatever it is. I mean, you're going to give much credence to
the type of person that's doing this for you. You must say, Jesus Christ, contrary to what I heard about the communists, I read, the man can't be bad or the woman can't be bad. Look what they've done for me.
Starts off peaceably enough down there in front of the mayor's office, but before long, things begin to get hot. About 1,000 of the Reds defy the police orders to move, and so the orders are being carried out. And a lot of the Reds are carried out too. And the cops are having a busy time of it, but it won't last long. And another Red rally fight.
So they didn't even pretend to not be like fascists back then. If you were hungry and you complained, if you were an activist and you weren't hungry, you just went down there in support, oh, they just automatically label you a red, a communist, and they said you're not just a communist, that all communists are like horrible, awful, mean people. Yeah, they're hungry, you mean? And believe me, they still do that amongst themselves. I mean, I've been around enough rich people and enough ordinary Americans and heard them say, you know, oh, those people, they're just, you know, they're just troublemakers, they're just criminals, you know, terrorists. I mean, they just start dehumanizing you immediately if you give a shit about anything.
I'd be in a demonstration, I'd see mounted police charge into people. You see horses' hoofs stomping on people. People being clubbed. Why? Because they were demonstrating for bread, a job. And to me, that was it. That was the movement. Help.
You see, and if there is any radicalism, it's because of the lack of movement on the establishment, the unwillingness of them to do anything about all these poor people.
Helping people to fight to change oppressive conditions.
We went into situations where, in retrospect, I'd be scared to death. You know, they were beating heads openly. There was bloodshed on the ground, and there wasn't even a question of not going. You know, you knew you were going to go. I mean, the stakes were high, and
So how are these bad people? I mean, come on. I mean, isn't it obvious? I mean, am I just beating a dead horse here? Well, I'm going to beat it some more because it's so obvious to me who the good guys and the bad guys are. I just don't understand. I mean, obviously, I can't understand the conservatives and their whole Fox News point of view where everything's the poor people's fault, everything, they're stupid, they're criminals, they're troublemakers, they're terrorists, they're fascists. I mean, do they really expect anybody to believe that? And if they did believe it, they could watch this, the first, what am I, about 15, 20 minutes into the show? 15 minutes. They could watch this and they'd know. I mean, already after this, what it's really about. The realities. So I don't think anybody has an excuse. I really don't. I mean, you know, people have been doing this forever, for sure, since Jesus, right? This is what Jesus was all about. This is what Buddha was all about, you know, the first one, and probably all the other ones. Hinduism, it's a little bit here and there about, not so much though, but people, you know, and always the old stories about the heroes of the people were all about, you know, they didn't just come and save the rich people. They were always taking care of the people. We'll watch more of this sometime, and I'll talk about this again more. It's a subject near and dear to my heart, so.
And the exhilaration was just total, and it was very easy to make this an absolute life's commitment at that moment.
Every Friday morning was going out to some aircraft factory and passing out leaflets, and then twice a week, because at the time I was still going to college, passing out leaflets at the gate of, if it was up here, it was at Sather Gate, and down at UCLA it was someplace else.
I'll let you watch a little more.
Really persistently doing work that I didn't find terribly exciting. I didn't really enjoy doing, but did it because I knew it was important. It was absolutely important to do, and I could make myself do it because it was important.
Did you ever have to talk? I didn't talk, but participated in a street corner.
Oh yeah.
My husband was given the job in the avenues, would you believe, Richmond, with all these kind of fat middle-class ladies scurrying around on a Saturday doing their marketing and shopping, and he would stand up on a soapbox and say, "Friends!" and I would die.
Well, first of all, it's if you've never been on a soapbox, it's sort of awkward. You get up on a chair and you look out, especially when the guy will precede you by saying, "And the next speaker is Bill Bailey, a member of the Marine Workers Industrial Union, and great, and this, and that, and you know, they give you a big razzle-dazzle, and you get up there, and you look out over a couple of hundred faces. Nobody's laughing, no expression, you know, no nothing. You don't know if they got a ham sandwich in their hand they're going to hit you with or what. And you're supposed to razzle-dazzle them, you know, stir them, you know, really get them up to where they're screaming bloody murder. Well, you know, and you get up there and your mouth is dry, you know, butterflies in your stomach. I mean, you're completely emotional, ready to collapse, and the first thing is said to yourself, I wish an earthquake takes place at this very minute, you know. But anyway, like everything else, you take a deep breath, and you say your first word, and the second one comes out a little bit easier, and after you get the word fellow worker, you know, out of your mouth, that's the way it is. And bit by bit you start warming up.
I'm glad you asked me my story. I have a story to tell. I rise in union and giving my heart brought great joy and living here. World that is fair is the vision we hold. In honor and peace where we all share the load. Where struggling for change is a natural thing. To keep to our promise, to bring true our dreams. I'm glad you asked me. I have a story to tell.
Okay, so heroes, huh? All dead now. But this is what the people now, when they talk about, you know, millennials and people like me, and this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to do it again. And believe me, if we even get close, they'll do the same thing they did to them. They'll drag them in front of, they'll just ruin everybody. And they'll wait until, you know, you're doing well or doing okay so that you have something to lose before they screw with you, right? I mean, some of them didn't have money, and we'll see that maybe in the next time when I come back to this. You'll see that they couldn't intimidate people who had nothing. right? Because those people would go, what are you going to do? What are you going to take away from me, right?
New Hampshire, you told the crowd you, quote, take a backseat to no one when it comes to progressive values.
I take a backseat to no one when you look at my record and standing up and fighting for progressive values.
Last month in Ohio, you said you plead guilty to, quote, being kind of moderate and center. Do you change your political identity based on who you're talking to?
No, I think that, like most people that I know, I have a range of views, but they are rooted in my values and my experience.
You know, I get accused of being kind of moderate and center. I plead guilty.
Just for the record, are you a progressive or are you a moderate?
I'm a progressive.
Buy into this stuff so that, I mean, what they expect to get back, right? Well, maybe it's just the American nightmare, you know. Maybe they're content with the American nightmare. You know, this voting Republican or voting fake Democrat, you know, establishment Democrats working for me. So maybe that's what Cenk Younger thinks too, you know, and I'm not going to do that because that's not the kind of person I want to be. I feel like if there's a hell, that's where I'll end up if and I do believe in hell, not the kind of hell in the Bible, but I do believe in conscience. I've watched tons and tons of people blow that off and say, no, it's every, you know, look out for number one and all that crap, and ends justifies the means. And I've seen where they end up. They end up in hell on earth. I mean, I've seen every single one of them who grasps that and goes for that, grabs that brass ring, you know, the merry-go-round, and there's a brass ring, and people used to reach out and grab it and they'd win a prize. Well, that's pretty stupid. What if you reach out and you miss and you fall off the merry-go-round and end up underneath it and all crushed and okay, I'm being a little crazy now, but my point is that I think it was dangerous. I mean, maybe they had a strap around their waist, but reaching out for a brass ring in the hope of getting a little prize on a merry-go-round seems like a very dangerous thing to do to me. And it seems to me like sacrificing your morals and ethics, hopefully, I mean, obviously you're hoping to feel secure and be happy. Seems like a very dangerous thing. You know, especially when you're throwing everybody else under the bus. And I don't have to. Like I say, I could get that brass ring. That's no problem. Matter of fact, I suppose I kind of have, like I was saying. But I think it's very dangerous. Everybody I've seen try ends up in a kind of a hell on earth, and I happen to believe that they end up in a kind of a hell after when they die. So that being said, I'm going to let you hear this article about TYT and
the Young Turks Network, led by Cenk had secured $20 million. It was recently announced that the Young Turks Network, led by Cenk had secured $20 million in funding to bolster their business/media presence. But while Igor attempts to sell his brand to the public as a progressive alternative media outlet, facts reveal that this is nothing more than a facade meant to lure young liberal pragmatists into buying into a hidden corporatist agenda. The $20 million in funding is slated to be used to increase the size of the DYT newsroom and for business operations. But where did the money actually come from? It is important to know that DYT has reported on some hard-hitting stories and exposed serious problems within the state, and Igor was unafraid of calling out corruption, so much so that he quit his job at MSNBC to work on the media project. However, once we start following the recent money, we can see a telling revelation begin to unfold. The funding comes from a number of sources, so let's take a look at these entities and the people behind them to better understand the agenda at play. The main conduit for the funding is a newly created growth equity fund called 3L Capital, with additional financial backing from venture capital groups Raycroft Partners, Ventures, and Ndurco, which was recently launched by Hollywood mogul Jeffrey Katzenberg. News is red hot right now, and being positioned on the progressive side of the coin has put us in a very good place, Igor said, according to Bloomberg. Far from being an independent progressive news source, as they proclaim to be, the DYT network is now being supported by your run-of-the-mill corporatist Clinton money machine. Although attempting to publicly operate as an insurgent progressive activist outlet, think Bernie Sanders, the financial backing by the aforementioned entities reveals something vastly different. Read more. First grader suspended for 3 days for pretending to shoot an imaginary bow and arrow. One need only look at who is behind the funding to understand the agenda being put into motion. 3L Capital, put together by hedge fund venture capitalist from Netherlands, Dr. Peter Paul de Vries. Raycroft Partners, venture capital fund run by Alan Patrikoff. Patrikoff has been active in Democratic Party politics, contributing to candidates including Bill and Hillary Clinton, whom he met in the Hamptons when they were their guests of lobbyist and Democratic activist Liz Robbins. Raycroft Partners pumps money into the Clinton slush funds so their businesses can curry favor from the government in an effort to maximize profits on the companies they are invested in. Jeffrey Katzenberg, Hollywood mogul and film producer, Disney, DreamWorks Animation. Katzenberg has been actively involved in Democratic politics. He actively supported Barack Obama, and has been called one of Hollywood's premier political kingmakers and one of the Democratic Party's top national fundraisers. To give you an idea of how enmeshed Katzenberg is in run-of-the-mill corporatist Democratic Party politics, he co-hosted a fundraiser for President Obama at the home of actor George Clooney in May 2012, with the event reportedly raising nearly $15 million. Additionally, it was reported that Obama held a private meeting in Los Angeles on October 7, 2012, where he joined Bill Clinton at Katzenberg's Beverly Hills mansion along with several deep-pocketed Democratic donors. Adley, members of the White House press corps who had traveled to California with Obama were not allowed into the home, but kept in the garage of Katzenberg's mansion, with one reporter called the meeting unusual. Katzenberg, who had previously donated $2 million to the pro-Obama PAC Priorities USA Action, donated an additional $1 million in October 2012, revealing that he is no progressive by any stretch of the imagination. Katzenberg tellingly donated $1 million to the Super PAC Priorities USA, which supported Hillary Clinton in the 2016 presidential race. Furthermore, in June 2016, information released by WikiLeaks regarding leaked Democratic National Committee documents confirmed that Katzenberg donated $3 million to the Hillary Clinton campaign. Then in October 2016, He hosted a $100,000 per person fundraiser at his Beverly Hills residence with Obama as the main attraction. Does he sound like a true progressive, in the style of Bernie, or something more akin to your run-of-the-mill corporatist Democratic Party insider? Let's call a spade a spade. Katzenberg's Vnderco is nothing more than a $500 million slush fund designed to buy up and promote faux progressive websites and YouTube channels with the intent of having them operate as an echo chamber meant to bolster corrupt liberal corporatist candidates like Hillary Clinton. Essentially, they work to normalize their corporatist establishment candidates in places where Bernie supporters frequent. Not sounding so progressive anymore. The idea that someone with such a strong track record of support for the Clinton machine and Obama, like Katzenberg, is actually working to help real progressives and progressive ideas come to the forefront of American political discourse is patently absurd. Ironically, Senk still attempts to maintain that he is against money in politics, completely failing to mention that his newest corporate owners have shoveled millions of dollars into the pockets of Hillary and Obama, both standard errors for the corporatist brand of Democratic Party politics. Read more. 22 years ago today, Edward Bernays died and his propaganda is still used to control you. The reality of the situation is that mega-rich corporatist Democratic backers aren't investing in the YT network to turn a new leaf. These vulture capitalist outfits are buying influence within progressive outlets like Young Turks as a means of indoctrinating their audiences prior to the next election cycle, with hopes they can undermine the next Bernie. It's worth noting that the YT actually supported Bernie in the primaries. So, when super-rich centrists invest $20 million into the company, one must wonder if this is to support them or to change their messaging, in an effort to keep them from promoting real progressives like Bernie during the next election cycle. Buying up leading progressive influence sites like the Young Turks is an ingenious strategy by the oligarchy to maintain control of political discourse in the United States. It seems obvious that the Clinton machine has a strategy in place to prevent the rise of the next Bernie Sanders, and Gore seems more than content to sell out his progressive base to standard corporatist Democratic control. Make no mistake, these Clinton cronies are buying influence in progressive outlets in an effort to maintain power for the political and financial elite. The oligarchy refuses to allow for political discourse to manifest organically, and aren't working diligently to propagandize the public. Please share this important story to expose the divide and conquer strategy being implemented by the ruling elite.
New Hampshire, you told the crowd you, quote, take a backseat to no one when it comes to progressive values.
I take a backseat to no one when you look at my record and standing up and fighting for progressive values.
Last month in Ohio, you said you plead guilty to, quote, being kind of moderate and center. Do you change your political identity based on who you're talking to?
No, I think that, like most people that I know, I have a range of views, but they are rooted in my values and my experience.
You know, I get accused of being kind of moderate, center. I plead guilty.
Just for the record, are you a progressive or are you a moderate?
I'm a progressive.
Okay, I'll remind everybody again, our pinned post is about the Reboot Army, and if you don't know what it is, well, it is the Reboot Army, yay! just a dream I have, right? Of $15 an hour paid volunteers marching across the country and paid for by you. No skimming. Nothing off the top. Every penny that you put in, I mean, it should be, I'm going to register it as a non-profit, so the only money that nothing comes off the top, but the only money, every penny that goes in will go out at $15 an hour to the people doing the work. And this is to put boots on the ground. That's the Reboot Army. Boots on the ground. Reboot. Boot, boot, boot. We are home of the reboot, so that's why it's called the Reboot Army. But in this case, it's very correct to say it's boots on the ground. And it is. So, what is it? The Reboot candidates. We will promote them, and both individually and as a group. They're candidates who don't take any money from anybody we don't like, you know. So they don't take any money from, say, a conservative think tank or something crazy like that. Conservatives. I mean, we just don't take money from conservatives, period. If somebody sent us some money and then tried to tell us, well, what they want us to promote Hillary Clinton, say, we'd go, hey, fuck you, man. Give them the middle finger, and we'd send their money back to them. There's no way we're gonna ever become them, you know. So anyway, that's the Reboot Army. That's the pinned post. Go there, send money, send me money. Yes, me money. If you want to send some money to me for Democratic Party News to help me, the address is there in the Reboot Army. It's the same address. Just make sure that you make it out to Reboot Army if it's not for me. Make it out to either me, Martin Drummond, or I haven't set up an account for Democratic Party News, so if you did that, I would have to go do that. You can make it out to Democratic Party Headquarters News and force me to go do that, but I don't think it really matters, because I'll make it as a DBA. Robert Cook. Let me get a little bit closer so you can see. Obviously, it's a picture of Malcolm X, and it says, usually when people are sad, they don't do anything. They just cry over their condition. But when they get angry, they bring about change. Well, that's not really true, is it? I mean, they get angry all the time. Nothing changes. You want to change something? Put in progressive candidates that are not bought off. That's how you get change. I know everybody loves to talk about all these different people. Einstein, he was so smart, and Malcolm X, he was so great, and Martin Luther King, he was so wonderful, but you know, they don't always get it right. And in this case, Malcolm got it wrong. We know perfectly well that for all of the anger, I guess that means violence, right? So for all of the breaking things or whatever it is that they did, burning down their own neighborhoods, burning CVS, whatever, burning stores in their own neighborhood. We know nothing's changed. I mean, they just let off a guy who said he was going to go kill a black guy, and then went and did it, and they still let him off. And yeah, everybody got angry, and what's changed since then? Since last week, when everybody marched and down the streets of their outdoor prisons, you know, like St. Louis. Outdoor prison, huh? It's just an outdoor prison. I mean, the black man steps out of it and steps into a rich man part of St. Louis and starts walking around, he'll end up getting a one-way ticket to the police station, and then who knows what, right? Maybe dead. They're outdoor prisons, and we're all in outdoor prisons in this. So what does Robert Cook have to say? Let's see. Oppression versus freedom. Is America today governed or ruled? Well, it's ruled, obviously, Robert. I mean, everybody knows that. Come on, give me something here. I came here to make a speech to tell you the truth, and if the truth is anti-American, then blame the truth. Don't blame me. Well, no, that's Malcolm X. That's not Robert. And yeah, they do blame you. They're always going to blame, you know, what is it? Don't kill the messenger. Yeah, well, good luck with that. My preference in that situation is not to give the message. Just go, well, we'll see how he does on his own. And then it says, we bit for Mr. Obama's change we can believe in, but got more of the deep state's agenda. Robert, I couldn't agree with you more. You know, you're on the exact same page as me. If it was just me, I would stop reading here because I know exactly what you're going to say. The Democratic two-party political avenue has failed the people and allowed the oligarchy to increase its control. Getting worse when big banks, Wall Street, big corporate, military, industry all partner with our government and determine what we the people get, and that's fascism. Yeah, I know. You're not telling me anything, but I hope you're telling some of the people who listen to this, because it goes out to quite a few different people now. So we need a viable third political party. Yeah, but we don't have one. And there isn't, as far as I can tell, there isn't a movement to get one. I mean, you guys talk about it, but the fact is the Democratic Party is going to be the party that everybody invests in from now on. So what we need to do is take back the Democratic Party. And you third-party buttheads need to get on board with that. And we're not doing it from within. You're a member of the Democratic Party headquarters. You know what we're doing here. And you know it's not about third party. But then, shithead that you are, you go ahead and post your third party crap, your Green Party crap. I'm a member of the Green Party. I don't have a problem with third parties. But I'm not stupid enough to think that they're the solution. And you guys need to stop trying to push your agenda on Democratic Party's headquarters, because Democratic Party headquarters isn't about that. We're the home of the reboot. We're about rebooting the party. Do you not understand that? Do you not get that somehow? If you don't get that, go find go post your shit in a Green Party or one of the millions of parties. There's so many of them, third parties now. It's not even funny. And not one of them is going to matter for the next 10, 20, 50, 100 years. Okay? There hasn't been... The last time that a third party made any kind of difference was when Teddy Roosevelt started the Progressive Party. And it was because Teddy Roosevelt started it. It was because a guy who used to be, that's why Bernie was so, Bernie's part of the establishment. He's anti-establishment, but he's accepted by them. He what do you call it, caucuses with the Democrats, and that's not going to work for him.
Walmart's opposition to unions was led for decades by labor lawyer John Tate, who after his retirement proudly recalled at this company meeting in 2004 what he said was his favorite phrase.
Labor unions are nothing but blood-sucking parasites living off of the productive labor of people who work for a living.
Hillary Clinton was not present at this Walmart meeting, but Tate was relied on for years to keep unions out at Walmart, including during the 6 years from 1986 to 92, when Clinton was on the Walmart board and Tate was either an executive or a member of the board himself.
The emails. There were over 60,000 in total sent and received. About half were work-related and went to the State Department, and about half were personal that were not in any way related to my work.
When you speak to the public, you say, "I turned over everything." That's, for the most part, a direct quote. When you talk to the public, you say, "I turned over everything." 90 to 95% of my work-related emails were in the state system. If they wanted to see them, they would certainly have been able to do so. You know what? That is maybe the 10th time you have cited that figure today. It is. And I have not heard anyone other than you ever cite that figure. Who told you that 90 to 95% of your emails were in the State Department system? Who told you that? We learned that from the State Department in their analysis of the emails that were already on the system. The Inspector General report found that less than 1% of State Department emails, record emails, were captured. So they give a number of less than 1%, and you give a number of 90%.
Interest in Libya in 2012.
The server contains personal communications from my husband and me.
Only time I got on the internet, I did 2 emails, and I ordered Christmas presents from a reservation. Otherwise, I found people said embarrassing things on emails. I didn't want to be one of them.
I mean, and how many angels dance on the head of a pin? I have really nothing to. I mean, how do you answer that?
Represented Wall Street as a senator from New York, and I went to Wall Street in December of 2007 before the big crash that we had, and I basically said, cut it out. Quit foreclosing on homes. Quit engaging in these kinds of speculative behaviors.
Now, who's exactly to blame for the housing crisis? I think there's plenty of blame to go around. Home buyers who paid extra fees to avoid documenting their income should have known they were getting in over their heads.
Of course, we have to deal with the problem that the banks are still too big to fail. We can never let the American taxpayer and middle-class families ever have to bail out the kind of speculative behavior that we saw. But we also have to worry about some of the other players. AIG, a big insurance company, Lehman Brothers, an investment bank. There's this whole area called shadow banking. That's where the experts tell me the next potential problem could come from. So I'm with both Senator Sanders and Governor O'Malley in putting a lot of attention. represented New York, and I represented New York on 9/11. When we were attacked, where were we attacked? We were attacked in downtown Manhattan, where Wall Street is. I did spend a whole lot of time and effort helping them rebuild. That was good for New York, it was good for the economy, and it was a way to rebuke the terrorists who had attacked our country.
9/11 was bad.